Okay, 2 questions. Gia, we'll start with you.
Okay.
When it's about
Sorry.
When it's about what was a time that comes to you that was important when it comes to worship? Maybe the first time it connected with you, or maybe a moment that stood out that was really powerful.
Okay. Well, like, is it okay to be personal?
Absolutely. That's all I want.
Okay, so I think like one time in particular that I like vividly remember is the service was over like forgiveness, and it was like how like it's easy to hold things against people and like you don't even realize you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So like I just sat in silence with God and I was like, what am I not letting go of? And it was like just like stuff with my mom and things that like I thought that I had like forgiven her for, but like I hadn't. And it's like hard coming to that realization because like you're with that. I'm with my mom every single day, you know, and like coming to realize that like you hold like all these like aggravations or you hold this stuff against her is hard. So I like genuinely just like sat there and I was like, God, like help me. Like I can't, like it's a burden and it's weighing on me, like seeing her and like being reminded of like all these things that happened in the past. I just like want to walk in love from here on out. And I mean, like it worked. I don't hold anything against her anymore, and like like it's honestly like in the back of my head, and I don't hurt anymore because of it.
Right.
Because you know whenever you hold things against people, like it just hurts you, and the things that happened in the past, they don't hurt me anymore. So.
Okay, that's really sweet. It's interesting because I think, and I wonder if Macy, Izzy, you would agree that when sometimes in worship you're worshiping God, but like the mirror comes back on you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I'm trying to focus on God, but like stuff comes out of your own life in the process. Why do you think that happens? You don't have to, there's no right answer here. Just like, what's your best crack at why you think that happens?
I think it's because it's a moment of vulnerability. And I feel like God knows everything that goes on in your life. But obviously when you're at a time of vulnerability, I feel like it's more likely to happen that mirror will shine on you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think it's like he's kind of putting it into place. Like he's giving you like, hey, this is what's happening to like kind of move further in your faith. So like Gia said, like forgiving of her mom. I went through a lot of that too here recently, like in the past year or so, like forgiving my mom for things and stuff like that. But it was hard for me to do until it was brought to my attention from other things, even when it's during worship, during prayer, that like, hey, like this is your next step.
Yeah.
So
I feel like as like Christians and stuff, God has called us to like a bigger purpose, and like sometimes we're held to a higher standard in which like we need to like walk in love and walk in forgiveness, and also like show people mercy, like show them the mercy that has been shown to us every single day. And so in times of worship and in like those special moments with God, like he shows you like where you're lacking in your faith and where you're lacking in your treatment of other people, because as the people we are trying to be, and as you know, like the love that we are trying to show, like we can't give that and show that to other people like if we're still walking in grudges and things like that.
Yeah,
I agree.
I said this before to our youth group on Wednesday, to high school. It's something I found out over a few years, and you would only figure it out in the moment. The hardest message actually to preach in our youth is about forgiveness. It's the one that I can tell, and I've been preaching now for about 9.5 years. I'll be coming up on 10 soon. But it's the one, I know when a room's not for me, and I know when I'm not liked, and it's happened more times than I can ever count. But when I preach about forgiving people that have hurt us, you can feel tension. Yeah. Like people in rows will just go lock. They'll almost not see me anymore, and they'll just get in their. You can see people go internal and they get in their head. What I love about worship is because you're focusing on God, he gently like gets you to realize this is something we need to do. Like preaching kind of is, it's here, it's in your face. It's something I need to contemplate. When we worship and we're focusing on the Lord, a lot of times we're kind of like, I'm trying to escape, or I'm trying to go from this. I'm trying to get released from this. And then in surprise, it's like, and the mirror turns in. And my impression is I've never felt like the Lord's been like, he's been stern. I've had a lot of correction. I've had some hard things I've had to swallow, some very tough things I've had to chew on and swallow and just kind of accept and receive and change. I've never felt like he shoved me in anger. Like I've never felt like, even though the vulnerability of my life is coming up in worship, I don't feel like he's punching me.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel, because sometimes when you get corrected, you
Oh yeah.
feel like you get,
it's like, don't talk to me anymore.
you feel like you get punched. Like
Yeah.
you're just like, I mean, I know I need to change it, but now I'm just mad, so I won't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that worship with the Lord kind of flips that. The second thing is, what was the time that you found like just in a time with the Lord or something where you're like, God's just blessed me. It's just, this was a good time with him, or I know this was him in my life. And it always stands out to me.
Are you talking about like a time like God has like proven, like shown us something to be thankful for, or a time
like you knew it was God's hand in your life? Like some people showed, like I was, invited here and I felt God's presence in worship and I got plugged in. I knew that was the Lord, and that was just him being good to me. And that's just the goodness of God in my life.
Okay. Well, one instance of God's goodness, there's plenty, but one that like I vividly remember is on mission trip, like this past one over the summer. And like I personally have always like struggled with the idea of like marriage and love and kids, just because for me personally, I've never seen what it looks like to have a good family and like a whole family. You know what I mean? Like something that's not broken. I've never seen a family that's not broken. And so in my mind, it's always been, I'm not getting married. I'm not having kids. I'm going to be by myself. I'll be better off by myself. I'll hurt less people being by myself. And over mission trip, God spoke through you to me, and he basically said that I am fully capable of finding love and being loved in the way that I deserve and having a family that isn't broken. And I'll just never forget that, because the idea of like growing up and being by yourself, like it's not pleasant, but if you have your heart and your mindset on that because you're so scared of the brokenness of your past, getting that relief that it's something that's achievable for you, even whenever you feel like you're not lovable enough to have that, getting that that gratification from God, like saying like, I have you, and because of me, like as long as you walk through me and with me, you're gonna get the things that you deserve, and you're gonna get the people that love you, and you're gonna get people that you can love correctly. It's just like a good feeling.
That's very sweet. That's a very personal,
yeah,
like specific to you in your life. Okay, so walk with me here. When that became a reality to you, what did your dream look like?
Oh, I'm gonna cry. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so like originally, like, okay, my plan. Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay,
You're fine.
so
I nearly cried like 2 of them ago. You're fine.
When my original plan was to just do me, it was, go to college, get a career, be busy enough to where like I didn't need or feel the need to be seen or loved. And the minute that I got that confirmation that like I am deserving of having a family that isn't broken and it's in my future, it turned from like, staying busy and whatever, like finding purpose in outside things to, like getting, married and having kids and being able to give to other people in ways that like I never was given to, and not like physical things. I mean, like not like materialistic or physical things. Like I mean like love, and like being able to love a mini me, or being able to love a partner in ways that like I just like haven't felt loved before. And so where I felt like that wasn't possible, my idea went from I can't wait to be able to give the love that I have to somebody else.
That's interesting, that when you feel like a dream was either non-existent or dead, and that the Lord speaks life into this, that the reaction is not even so much that it's what's interesting what you said is it's not even so much that you were finally like, now I can finally be loved by somebody.
Yeah.
but now I can actually
give,
which that's the character of God. That has to come from the Lord, because the whole nature of God, and Scripture says that it's not that God has love, it's that he is love. And his love beckons us to love him with all our heart, soul, and mind. And the second part of that testament is to love our neighbor as ourselves. So you have the nature of what we're called to is actually to love other people.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that for those that think that a family is impossible, that neighbor element is gone. They think, okay, friends, acquaintances, people I work with. Well, what if it's possible the Lord can open up your heart to love someone else?
Yeah.
In this manner. And what I think is also a testament of God is that the family you grow up in does not necessarily mean that's your trajectory.
Yeah. That's really important.
That just because that's your background doesn't mean necessarily that's going to happen. Now, that's a challenge for us that grew up with families that love the Lord, stayed together, tried their best, and all these things. It's like a reverse challenge of like, Lord, I want to have a good family. I want to have a strong family. I want to stay with my kids. I look at it with my own because I'm a father and I have 3 kids. What's particularly interesting is my second one looks exactly like me, and he has the exact same temperament as me. So he acts the same. He's very sensitive. He's very tender. He's very much a mother's boy, which I was. He's very like gets blanket for Nadia. He's very like, make sure you wash your hands. Like, he's not an aggressive type. I was like that. I was very, very tender. What's interesting, if I cry, I'm going to lose it potentially. What's interesting is that somewhere along the way, I let life and pains from, if we're going to get real spiritual, like the devil and life, and honestly, it came out in junior high and high school, just beat the crap out of me. And I just removed it. And I became a very calloused and numb person.
Yeah.
And when the closer I get with the Lord, the more I look like my son, which is how I used to look. So what is interesting about the love of God is it changes how we love other people and how we love ourselves and how we receive love. And what you said is true. And I'm in a different reflection of like, I'm looking at my kids and it's having to me to look at going like, what have I become?
Yeah.
If this was who I was before the pains and the punches of the world, what have I become? And I see how the Lord's created all my kids, all their flaws, but all the wonderful things. Peter, we don't really know what Peter's like, but he's just chubby, happy, and we can't tell he's very chill and kind of aggressive. But I'm looking at it and I'm like, you want the best, but I wanted to know the Lord, because what's brought me back to how God's created me is when I met God in myself. What's brought me back to not giving up on, dating and women, which I did. And, because I went through heartache and you're like, I'm just done. It's like, I'm just done. Yeah. I can't do it.
Yeah.
What honestly kept me from the ledge of just absolute a hole is my relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
And self-loathing and in hate is relation to the Lord. It brought me back to not just God's love, but when I received God's love, and like you said, the idea of other love became possible in my life. Like the idea of loving someone else, the idea of receiving love in marriage, the idea of that made sense. Yeah. Because when I didn't have God, I was just the type to spiral. Yeah. I did not have cloudy days. I had thunderstorms. Yeah. Like when I went into sadness, some people have bad days. Like I did not have sadness. It was a spiral. I had thunderstorms. Yeah. And but that's not who God has made us to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm reminded when I see my son, because he's naturally very happy. Mm-hmm. And I go, I'm still learning how to be exactly how God made me to be before life got to me. Mm-hmm. And so I think right now your relationship with the Lord is so important, because I believe it's unwinding things that have gotten to you over the process. Right. before you hit your young adult life where
Mhm.
everyone just hits a stinking red button and
Yeah.
goes, my personality changes, everything about me changes, my decisions change, my religion changes, everything, boom, boom,
Mhm.
boom, boom. And he's trying to kind of work things in your own heart and change
Yeah.
those. And that makes sense. But that's cool, though. That's a cool dream. That's a nice dream. I think you wouldn't be surprised, or maybe you would be, that people have given up on that. That possibility is going to happen. That people do give up on that. But that is sign of the goodness of God. Okay, go with me here. What does God's love feel like for you, in your own words, not you trying to be even theologically astute?
I feel like to describe it, it's kind of hard because everyone experiences it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I feel like it's emotions. Like whenever I'm worshiping at mission trip, me crying is me feeling God's love. I feel like what they were talking about with grudges, I've also had that problem too. But whenever I went on my first mission trip, I finally forgave someone in my family for the first time, and it had taken me a really long time to get there. And I think it's because of the feeling of God's love.
That's good. What would y'all say?
I feel like God's love is like an overwhelming desire to kind of follow like him, and like knowing that he's your example, and that if he's able to love everyone like how he does, then you should be able to too. And I don't know, like I feel very peaceful when it comes to God, and like I go through a lot of anxious and anxiety things. So when I feel like the presence and all of that, like I feel calm, I feel loved, and I feel like at place.
That's good.
I feel like God fills the voids that like you are missing. So like for me, like sometimes I feel like a lack of love from like other people. Like I just feel lonely, or I feel like unlovable, or like I feel like I'm not good enough. So in my moments with God, he fills me with that love that like I don't normally feel. Or like, for instance, like say someone that like experiences like severe depression, and you're having that moment with God, and you feel like the happiness, like you feel like you're filled with God's peace and happiness. So in those moments with God, I feel like he fills you with what you're missing in that moment.
That's good. That's good. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
How would y'all, like, if you're trying to explain God's love to somebody, how would you convince them? Like, what would you say to convince them that God loves them? Because, like, God doesn't love you.
That's a good
what
point.
would you say to convince them?
The light in the dark, kind of like he's that light. He's the one who's able to get you out of the hard times, and like he's the only one who's always going to be there, love you unconditionally, and like kind of he has like boundaries and things like that. I think that's important, and I think that everybody should know that if you're missing God's love, you're missing a lot of your life.
Very good. Interesting you brought up boundaries. You're correct. Scripture says he loves whom he corrects. So, but that would be inaccurate. Be fair. Be like, you can't really do everything you want to do, but yeah. Izzy, what would you say?
I just want to say that, like, no matter what home life is like for you or whatnot, that if you come, I'm gonna get emotional. If you come to God and you come to Arc Youth and you get connected, you will feel different, and it would be a good difference. And it would help with anger, things that are built up inside you. I don't know. I feel like it would help a lot with family things, because if you pray, like, I think that's a main thing is prayer. I think that's like what's very strong about having a relationship with God. And I feel like whenever she prays, if she does, she feels like it's not being answered because it doesn't happen right away. You know?
So it comes into complications of explaining God's love, if sometimes these things come in time. Also, some prayers don't need to be answered.
Yeah.
Some of if all my prayers were answered, I probably would have divorced 3 times by now, to be quite honest. That's for real, because I had prayers where I surely thought this woman was the one. I was like, oh, it has to be. If that was answered,
weird.
gosh.
I feel like it's hard to describe it though. Like I don't
So-
know how I put it into words.
Yeah, that's good.
I think like when it comes to somebody feeling like God doesn't love them, like there's not like much that like you can say to them. It's more like what you can show them. And so like if someone's going through a hard time, I feel like it's easier to meet someone where they're at. So I mean, like personally, I know every single one of us has gone through something that like has hurt, and we found God through those times. And I think talking about what he did in our lives and like the way that things turned around for us would almost like inspire or give them hope that it's possible for God to love them in the way that he showed us love in those times of hurt. Because it's easy to look at someone and say, God loves you and all you have to do is come to church. All you have to do is worship. That is all you have to do, but it's easy to say it, but it's hard for them to hear it. And so in order for them to not only hear you, but listen to what you're saying, relating to them, and like meeting them where they're at is important.
That's great.
Yeah.